And as we tool along with more thoughts from Tumor Town with your old buddy Bruce, I wanted to go over the one main client that I had during my time in corporate meeting and events, and that was Foot Locker. I never really got another client of any stature, but Foot Locker I did. And, it just started out with, a local company hiring me to go shoot video with Foot Locker at a girls' basketball event out at Disney. And the guy from Foot Locker, Vinny, and I just hit it off together. And, we both became quickly, you don't have to go to LMG to get me, just call me direct. And so, next thing you know, doing another shoot for them in Bradenton, then we're doing another little thing for them. And I'm telling them, we can do all your corporate meeting stuff too, all that support stuff for your corporate meetings. We can do all that. Okay, okay. One thing kind of led to another, and we started doing, some of the corporate meeting support. We did a little Lady Foot Locker thing that was really small, but we supported it, did it great. Me and John, you know, and then things kind of got a little wonky. The head of that multimedia department left, and Vinny kind of went up to become the head. And okay, we kept, did a thing or two, and Vinny hired a guy, Mike, um, to come in as his replacement and start to learn the stuff. And then Vinny went and took another job, and he left. And there's Mike going, whoa, I've only been in here like, 3, 4 months, and now I'm the guy in charge. What the heck? And I'm like, don't worry, I got you covered. So me and Mike, we barreled through it. Vinny would later come back, which was great, but it's still, for the most part, for going forward, it was pretty much me and Mike working together. Vinny was there, but Vinny wouldn't interact with me that much, and I would always complain to him that I was now the stepchild that you don't really want to see anymore, and tease him about it. But what ended up happening is Foot Locker became kind of almost a year-round client for me, and I was their technical director, which was the position that I got paid the highest day rate and I made the most money on. So it was a wonderful situation for me. It was a wonderful situation for my buddy John. It worked out great for everybody, and we took real good care of Foot Locker. I mean, we bent over backwards. We did everything to support them that needed to be done at great prices. I mean, we were there. I don't think we ever let Foot Locker down that I can recall. And so, we had like there was a time we were doing the Super Bowl. Foot Locker was doing all the merch, branded merch for the Super Bowl, and that was like a month long project, because we would go in, we'd load everything into the tent, we'd be there for a while before the thing opened, we'd do it for a week during the bowl, tear it all down and leave. That was a gig. Then we would do their big annual meeting for Foot, and then they had a Lady Foot because they had two separate divisions back then. And then we would do a road show for all the regions of that big annual meeting. Then we would do a meeting just for the manager trainers. We did their high school cross country event. We did a lot of stuff going through the course of the year. So I was pretty much busy doing Foot there for a while. And so, even though I had built up a nice clientele of freelance, people that I was working for, doing shows for them, I started to fall out of that because, I was busy with Foot Locker. So I would have to turn them down. And once you've turned them down a couple of times, you kind of fall off their list and they don't really come back to you anymore. And I got involved in the really high pressure gigs with some of those outside companies, where the world's going to collapse if their show doesn't go absolutely perfect. And I never cared for that kind of stuff. I mean, come on, it's a show. The world ain't going to end because your show had a mistake in it. Get life. I had a guy yell at me once, tell me I'd never work in this business again. I took the heat for people on one occasion, so at least somebody would fall on the sword. I did it, whatever. I made mistakes, owned up to them, that's the way it was, and then one day I ended up on a show with a bunch of people. I didn't know any of them, had never met them before, and we ended up in a situation where the crew had to kind of shift around positions, and I was like, I really should be the one to lead this, but because I was the outsider and didn't know any of them, they put this other person in, and that person was a little overwhelmed, and the show didn't go so well, and I kind of got the feeling, they didn't really, dig me too much because I didn't interact with them. I didn't like hang out in the bar, do anything like that, and other things like that, and I just finally said, I'm just going to do Foot Locker and John's things, and that's enough for me. I don't need to bust my butt and work 300 days a year. I just don't. And that was what I did. And so we kept going with Foot Locker, and that was great for several years. And we grew Foot Locker because in the beginning, the Foot Locker meetings were basically just, me and Vinny or me and Mike. That was it. We were the crew. We did everything, which meant we had very little budget, maybe a couple of lights, a couple of speakers, one microphone, very little. But over time, we continued to build and build and build, where I got it to where it was me and John and Mike, okay, now there's three of us. And then we would get me and John and an audio guy. Okay, we built, so by the end, the last several years, we ran full crews, just like a real show. So, it was great. It took time to do that, but we did it. And the shows were much better. And we did a 25-year anniversary, I believe, big show in Vegas, big monster show. And that was really fun. And that was where we introduced vendors into the deal. We had like a vendor expo, set them up in booths, like a trade show. So all the Foot Locker managers and everything could go visit the vendors up close and personal over the course of a day, get their information, blah, blah, blah. That became a permanent part of their annual meeting because the vendors would pay to do that, which would offset the cost of the meeting, and that just became kind of part and parcel of the deal. And, that was fine. I mean, it worked out well for everybody. Gave me more guys, to manage that and, more work for me to do and pre-production. It was fine, so... But over time, Foot Locker started to close in, First, we're not going to do the regionals anymore. And then we're not going to do the manager trainer anymore. And then we're not going to do the Super Bowl anymore. We're bailing on that. And then we're not going to have Lady Foot Locker as a separate entity. We're going to roll that in, da-da-da-da. So in the end, basically, we were doing two meetings a year. One main annual corporate meeting and the kids cross country championship, and that was it. So it wasn't that big of a client anymore. And corporate started to change. Vinny ended up basically getting forced out. Mike had left years before, and all the people I knew started to leave. And then the pandemic hit, and by the time they were ready to do a meeting again, after the pandemic had cleared, nobody that knew me was left. So we didn't get the gig. And so that was the end of our days with Foot Locker. I mean, I knew it was going to happen. It always does. Nothing lasts forever. But I was hoping we'd get one more out of them. But, that's the way it goes. It was a very good run of like 20 years. I still talk to Vinny and Mike on the phone at least once or twice a year. They're great guys. Love them both. And I mean, we had so many wild moments. You talk to any of the pirates, the John crew that have been on my Foot Locker shows, they can recant to you all sorts of crazy things. I mean, when we used to do it up in Connecticut at the Foxwoods, oh man, every year would be a blizzard. I'd be out there tromping through the snow like a crazy man, having a ball. I'd, do crazy stuff with that. And I remember one year, we were there and there was some big storm. Nobody could get to the place. And I'm walking through the big casino, a meeting area, and it's empty, empty, no people. It was weird. It was like The Shining. It was just really, really weird. You know, all you heard was the slot machine, ding, 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 ding. You know, just the strangest freaking thing. You know, and Lady Foot Locker, those meetings were always great because they were just a fun group of ladies, and they would always have a party night that would be like a costume party. You know, so we would all get dressed up in weird little costumes, and we would just throw a big party, and that was always just a lot of fun, and enjoyed the heck out of that. So, you know, did I bust my ass? Yeah. Foot Locker put me through the ringer many, many times. Made me work very, very hard, you know, to get things done and make things work. But we always did get them done and make it work. And, you know, that was my big client, and I miss them, and I wish them the best, you know, and I'll always look back fondly, as will many of the pirates, on the good old days of Foot Locker, and carry those with me to the grave. So to Vinny, Mike, and everybody else who's involved with Foot, thank you for all those great years. Sorry we couldn't have more, but, you know, that's the way it goes. I'll take what I got. Thanks, everybody. Peace, and hang 10.